All right, welcome everyone to today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva. And the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. You can also find me on JApp, that is j-app.me. That is a Jewish application that has shirim from a lot of different scholars and teachers, as well as episodes of this program. And of course, as I like to mention, anything to do with Israel really is about this topic. So that is why we're going to bring it on the line right now. We'll talk a little Israel sports. A member of the national skeleton team, the Israeli team, onto the program right now, AJ Edelman. AJ, how are you doing out there?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and we've had on Bradley Chalutsky earlier on my sports show in Tel Aviv about a year ago, and I know a little bit about skeleton racing, but if you could tell our audience what it is, because it is a unique sport, it's very fascinating, but I want the audience to know a little more in detail about what it is.
Sure, absolutely. So you probably have watched the Winter Olympics before and noticed that there's a sport called luge, which is men or women sliding down on a small sled, feet first, down an ice track. It's on the same track as bobsled. And skeleton is basically a head-first version of that. You lie on a sled that goes from basically your kneecaps to your shoulders, and you steer with your head and pressures on the sled to try to get down the track as fast as you can.
Okay, so a lot of people compare it to Cool Runnings. Is that a fair comparison?
In a way, yes, and in a way, no. Bobsled is a different sport from the skeleton for sure, but the community is very much the same. They're both sliding sports. They both are run on the same tracks in the same season, and pretty much the events are run for the most part at the same time. So there are a great deal of similarities, but there is also a separation between the two.
Now, what's interesting is Israel's qualification in regards to the World Cup, I think they're considered a warm country. Can you tell a little bit about what that means and how that's different from a quote-unquote cold country?
I think the distinction is more along the lines of small nations and larger nations, or how they term it. Small nations and large nations have different criteria for making different competitions, and that obviously is a result of the different funding and different support that athletes might be able to expect from larger and small nations. The United States obviously has a great deal more support in its program than the Israeli program would, and so usually nations who are considered small nations will have other considerations for entry into those competitions. And those competitions are usually governed at the World Cup level or at the Olympics level by a certain cap on the rankings that you have to be and how many countries can send how many different athletes. And there's a criteria, I believe it's for the Olympics, that 7 different nations get 1 different athlete. So in a way that would prevent the United States, who might have so many different people in the top 30 athletes in the world, from sending 30 different athletes.
Now, what's also interesting when I spoke to Bradley about his training is that during cold periods he would work with the snow, but in warm time he still was training, because Bradley was training all year long, as I'm sure you do as well. In the non-snow period, when you're not training for racing, Bradley was training in the gym. Do you have a similar type of regimen?
So I can't speak to how Brad's training regimen was, but my own regimen is, certainly we train a lot in the off season. The off season is where you'll probably see the most physical growth. In fact, I can say that you will see the most physical growth. A lot of times it can take place in a 3-month period in the off season. We're able to really pay attention to your physique and what you're striving to accomplish in terms of power and everything, because you're really not taking a lot of time to recomposition your body or to develop a whole lot physically during the season. A lot of your training and time is spent on the ice during the season, or focusing on your performance on the ice. And for that reason, during the off season, you have an incredible opportunity to accomplish what you have in the 4, 5, 6 months that you've been training on ice. And it's also a critical time for the athletes. The athletes certainly need to cover the gap, so to speak, in what they have. At the start of a run, we have a sprint off the top, and the sprint, it's called the push or the start. plays an incredibly important role in the downtime, in the eventual time that takes you to get to the bottom. So, for example, it's said that a second at the start is worth 2 to 3 at the bottom. And so if you start 2/10 or 3/10 behind another competitor, you automatically are, let's say, a half to 0.6, 0.7 seconds behind them in terms of advantage, and you have to drive that way. So the physical reconditioning and the physical strength that you can pick up in the off season can really play into that start, which is absolutely make or break for a skeleton athlete.
Now, talk about some of your goals, because I know there were some issues regarding the Winter Olympics last year, I believe, where Bradley qualified. Israel didn't want to pay for it. I don't know exactly the whole ball gone with that. But talk about your goals and what you're going to try to do to make sure that if you qualify, you're actually able to go and represent Israel.
Well, I believe that the issue was that the Israeli government, or the Israeli Olympic Committee, we'll say, is interested in sending, in their view, they're only pretty much interested in sending athletes that they think will qualify for medal position. And in winter sports, it's very, very difficult for for countries such as ours to qualify in a medal position, because we don't grow up from age 3, 4, 5, 6 playing these sports, and so a lot of times, if you're in a position to qualify, there's not a whole lot of interest to actually send you. So the issue with Brad was that I believe they told him that if he qualified, they still would not send him. My own personal goals are to make the Olympics. To qualify for 2018 is absolutely my goal. As to the attitude of the Israeli Olympic Committee, that's something that's being worked on very diligently by Brad himself, as well as the president of the federation and a couple of friends in Israel. But until we have a more clear picture on whether they would be amenable to sending me if I qualified, the best that I can do in the short term, or in the time between now and 2018. Or eventually 2022, is to best represent Israel in all of the other international competitions, and that includes World Cups, World Championships, and any of the other lower-level competitions, for which I'd say almost all the athletes that I've met have never met a religious Jew, and they've certainly never met a religious Jew. As to whether they've met a Jew, it's always very difficult to know. And there's a lot of pride that goes on with representing Israel and representing the land and the nation, because I've faced a number of times when I've met people and they have very, very well-formed stereotypes of Jews, of Israel, and it's nice to put a personal face and to help either combat it or to kind of reshape how they view Jews in sport, Jews in general, Israelis as well.
Yeah, and you're listening to Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Route 7. The show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the program. We're continuing the conversation with A.J. Edelman, representing Israel's skeleton racing team. Now, for those out there listening, A.J., and think this guy's got to be nuts or incompetent, actually, you're pretty smart. You went to MIT. That's a pretty good accomplishment. So what is a nice Jewish boy who went to MIT doing something as dangerous as this?
You sound like my mother. Basically,
she said that once or twice to you, I imagine.
She says it just about every day. I call home, from a track, and she doesn't want to talk about it. But what am I doing in skeleton is a question that I'm routinely asked, given my background in engineering and going to MIT. I guess we could take a medium route to this story, which is back in college I played goalie for the MIT hockey team. And there was a couple of seasons towards the end, I'd say junior and senior year, which I was very frustrated with how things were going, and I knew that I needed an outlet for my athletic abilities, and so I started to reach out to find different ways in which I could accomplish things in the world of sport, which would fully take advantage of what I had perceived to be a gift. There was nothing more frustrating to me, then thinking that I had been blessed with an ability for which in 10 years would probably have deteriorated and gone away, and without taking full advantage of it. And so I did reach out into the world of sport. I found, I guess, as a natural extension of all of my off-ice hockey training, for which I was doing a great deal. Probably about during the season, I was doing the 2 hours of on-ice hockey practice a day, but also 2 hours of lifting a day. And in the off-season, it was about 3 hours of various plyometrics and lifting a day. So I'd found, as a natural extension of the lifting, bodybuilding. And so I entered into competitive amateur drug-free bodybuilding. But that world kind of left me still a little bit unsatisfied, since there's a very concrete goal, but there is somewhat of a I won't say it's a limit, but there is only a certain level that you could achieve by being an all-natural bodybuilder. And so I looked for an even bigger challenge, and I turned on the television in about October of 2013. In October of 2013, the team trials for the Olympics in Sochi 2014 were taking place, and I saw bobsled on television. And as a guy who was full of testosterone and everything, I said, I can lift, I can push things. I would love to push a big bobsled and go down a track, no problem. So I applied to work as a bobsled pilot in both the U.S. program, and I was speaking to the Israeli program at the same time. And basically the reaction that I got was, they said you listed your height as 5'10" and your weight as 80 kilograms, or about 178 pounds, 177 pounds. I said, yeah, that's correct. That's what I am. They said that doesn't really work for us. You should be around 200 to 220 pounds and 6 feet tall for bobsled. I said, oh, well, that's kind of a bummer, but there must be something else that I could do. And they said, yeah, there's this head first sport called skeleton. I was like, well, that sounds exciting. Tell me more. And I learned all about it that I could, and was selected to go out to a training. It's called a driver school in the Lake Placid Olympic Training Center in March of 2014, right around when the Olympics were wrapping up, and was privileged at the time to be in contact with both the Israeli and the American federations. I had read about Brad's efforts to qualify for Sochi 2014 and thought that it would be the most amazing honor to be able to wear the white and blue while competing for Israel. So in the driver's school in March, they determined that I was not a danger to myself while going down a track, that I had perhaps a future in the sport, and the ball started rolling from there.
Now, there really isn't money in this sport, or is there?
There is no money in this sport.
You're doing this because you love the sport.
I'm doing it because I love the sport, because I love the thrill of athletic achievement, and because I love to represent Israel and its people on a much larger stage. There's not a whole lot that I don't think I could compare anything else to wearing the suit, which has the Israeli flag on it, the Jewish star on it, and standing at the top of the track waiting to go down, and hearing that the track is clear for the Israeli slider. And it's just such an amazing honor and feeling that I wouldn't trade it at the moment for anything. There's a whole lot of financial burden and cost that goes into the sport, and every single penny of it is very much worth it.
Again, this is a Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, we're continuing with skeleton racer for Israel, A.J. Edelman. Now, A.J., let's go briefly to your hockey career. As you talked about, you attended MIT. And I interviewed Tamir Goodman last week, and he really was a groundbreaking athlete, first Shomer Shabbat Jew to play Division I basketball. And here you are, a Shomer Shabbat Jew who played for MIT. What was that experience like for you? You mentioned briefly that with skeleton racing, a lot of times they don't see a Jew. What about with hockey at MIT?
Hockey certainly was I think a new experience for both myself and the rest of the teammates. on the MIT team. I started hockey at around age 3. So I like to joke to people that I was born in a hockey rink. But ever since I was young, I was pretty much almost, my body was, it seemed, conditioned to play. So hockey was a sport that I'd grown up on, and at about the end of my high school career, so in the middle school career, I was offered a number of prep school offers to go play in prep school or in other private schools for hockey, which is the route that you'd want to go if you wanted to go to a serious Division I hockey college. And that obviously would have meant leaving Maimonides, which was my Jewish day school at the time, and pretty much forfeiting my Jewish education. So we decided to pass up on that, and with that with passing on that opportunity, pretty much gave up on any hope for a career in the sport or any aspirations that I had. But it was about the time during my year off in Israel that I decided to apply to MIT, and at the same time I got this kind of competitive kick in the butt again. And so I'd applied to MIT from yeshiva, and at the same time decided to get back in shape, and my one goal during when not learning was to condition myself to best make the hockey team once I got to MIT. And so the experience that year, during that year off of reconditioning myself, I lost 30 pounds, upped my my stamina, my cardiovascular endurance, and then made that hockey team, I'm proud to say. And the experience on the hockey team was one in which I think was mutually beneficial for both me and my teammates. It certainly, I don't believe any of the teammates had ever met a religious Jew. Many of them had not met Jews who identified as Jewish. And the concept of, well, I can't play in the Friday night games or Saturday until sundown, an hour after sundown, was very much a new concept to them. So I do remember in the sophomore season, prior to the sophomore season, I sent a list that I downloaded from Chabad.org of the candlelighting times in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I said, add an hour or so after that, and you can't schedule it from the candlelighting times to an hour after that on Saturday night. Don't schedule thing. And I think it was a very, very new experience to the team, to the people who were running it, and there was also some confusion in it. In junior year, they actually I said, don't schedule till an hour after, and somewhere in that conversation it was, don't schedule from the candlelighting times to an hour before then. But I think any time in which you can represent Jews in general, it doesn't matter if you're representing it from a Shomer Shabbos or a Sabbath observance standpoint. It doesn't matter if you're representing it from a kosher standpoint, which also was, I believe, a new experience for the guys of me not eating when we went out for the most part. But anytime you can represent Jews in a positive light is a very positive experience for everybody involved, and I take away a lot of fond memories from that experience, certainly.
What's funny, AJ, is when I was in the United States and I applied for jobs, I remember one particular interview I said, so this is the schedule I can do. I can't work sundown Friday, sundown Saturday. And the guy said, if it's just that 1 week, that's fine. I said, no, it's like that every week. And the look on his face and the confusion, so it is bringing something new to the table. Now, we don't think the Ivy League as per se a lot of anti-Semitism. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. We think of anti-Semitism more in less cultured places. But I'm curious if you did receive any anti-Semitism from other teams in the Ivy League.
Well, MIT does play a lot of teams that would be in the Ivy League. MIT, for whatever reason, has decided that it doesn't want to be part of the Ivy League. However, it does interact very closely with the Ivy League. But when it came to interacting with other schools, I think that I don't believe that it was very apparent that I was Jewish to a number of the other players on the other team. So I never did encounter any anti-Semitism on the ice for others. From others. However, there were stereotypes for which I did arrive and have to combat. When I originally did arrive, just little comments that certainly are born from stereotypes for which people are I would say ignorant of where they come from. And there was also, I'd say that there's a sub-story to why I was frustrated with the way things were going in that junior and senior year, and part of that, I believe, may have been linked to what I perceived to be a situation which I did not, which I didn't like. Let's just say. So I mean, there's silver linings to everything, I believe, and there's certainly been any time which I encountered any anti-Semitism, and I did encounter a fair amount as well coming up through my youth playing time as well. There's always something to take away from it. In the case of hockey, and certainly in the case of an MIT hockey, that what I had perceived to be kind of encountered, it gave me that kick to pursue another avenue of sports. And so I wouldn't be here now, and I wouldn't be competing for Israel and Skeleton now if I hadn't had a perception that things were not exactly working out as they should, and that may have been a result of some bias.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've experienced anti-Semitism myself in the United States, and it's kind of a good thing because it reminds you you're different. Being a Jew is different, and sometimes you're reminded by that by God, and sometimes you're reminded by that by people, and it's something that every Jew goes through, especially in the United States. Again, this is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Route 7. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find me on j-app.me. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll have more on the other side. This is It Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.